What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video on Fantasy Football Scout. And today I'm revisiting the FPL Legends series that I started last week. So last week I looked at forwards, and this week I'm looking at midfielders. Just as a reminder, this is more to look at those players that have scored 200 plus points in a season kind of multiple times, rather than looking at maybe some of our cheaper favourites. So this video won't be concentrating on the likes of Michu, Sigurdsson, Charlie Adam when he was at Blackpool, those kind of players who were cheap, nice value for the points they return, although we might visit them in another video. But in this one, we're looking mostly at the big hitters. So let's jump into it. So before we look at the 5 main players that have made the list, I wanted to talk about some of the players that maybe controversially haven't been selected. So the way I've done it is who has had the most 200 plus point season in their FPL careers. And obviously then if they've had kind of similar amounts, so if they've had like 2 and another player's had 2, then I've looked at who had the higher points totals in those years. So controversially, there's probably some players that are going to miss out, even more so than the forward category. There's a lot of midfielders that have hit the 200 plus point mark, probably because it's a little bit easier, which I'll delve into more as we get through the video. So some of the players that haven't made the list: Riyad Mahrez in Leicester's title winning season, incredible score of 240 points, and let's not forget he was priced extremely low in that season as well. Gareth Bale, 2012-2013, 249 points. A bit like Cristiano Ronaldo, who we will talk about later, probably missed out just because he didn't stay in the league long enough. I'm sure he would have gone on to huge things from an FPL point of view, but because he then moved to Real Madrid, there's no other scores but above 200. So 249 is an incredible score, but only once has he done it. De Bruyne, only once over 200 points. Obviously playing in a Man City team where the points are shared, maybe there's a bit of rotation there. He's had a few injury problems as well, so he's only hit over 200 once, so he doesn't make the list either, although he's on 178 already this year, and his current points per match is 6.8. So if he carries on at that kind of level with the amount of games that are left, if the FPL season's finished, he'll finish on 246, which would be a pretty nice score. David Silva, one of the best midfielders probably to ever grace the Premier League, has never hit 200 points in a season. In fact, his highest total score is only 13 points more than Gareth Barry. So, as always, this video is concentrating on things from an FPL point of view, not necessarily how they perform in games. And we all know that sometimes there are great players that just aren't great FPL options. And that's not to say that David Silva hasn't been over time. Obviously, we should say that points per match is one of the key factors when we're bringing in a player. But for the purposes of this video, I've looked at season total scores. So David Silva's not there. Cazorla, 205 points. Yaya Toure had a great 241 points, but only got over 200 once. Mane last year, 213 points. And he's on it to hit over 200 again this year if he carries on the way he has been. Dele Alli got 225. Mata, 212. Clint Dempsey, double game week hero, 209. Even Mesut Ozil scored 200 points once. Now, the 2 players, that whole list is probably fair enough they weren't included from an FPL point of view. There is 2 players that don't make the list who are probably the most controversial. So Alexis Sanchez, forget about his Man United career. When he was at Arsenal, he was incredible. 264 points was his highest, and he actually scored 200 points twice. And Fabregas also did the same. He's not making the list. He's hit over 200 points twice, 205 points and 214. So not such a high score as the likes of Sanchez or even Bale, but still did it more than once. And I think if you look back at when people played FPL when Fabregas was at kind of top of his game, they'd remember him as a great player. But they don't make the list. Let's see who does. So a bit like Thierry Henry when we were talking about forwards, no one really comes close to Frank Lampard when it comes to midfielders and consistency. So over 7 seasons, from the 2003-2004 season all the way to 2009-2010, there were 6 seasons when he scored more than 200 points, which is absolutely incredible. So he's had scores of 216, 269, 222, 202, and then 226, and then finished in that last season, the 2010 season, with an incredible high of 284, which is actually the 3rd highest score ever to be recorded in FPL, behind Mo Salah 303 and Luis Suarez 295. And obviously Salah we might talk about in a little bit, but yeah, 2 of those high scores incredible: 269, 284. Only Van Persie on the forward list ever scored more than 260 points twice. So Frank Lampard really is kind of in a league of his own in terms of FPL points scored. And we've talked a lot over the years about how easy it is for kind of midfielders to score points versus forwards. We all know they get a clean sheet points, they get an extra point for their goal as well. And when you combine that with an elite midfielder like Frank Lampard on penalties as well, played in some great Chelsea teams, it's no wonder he scored so heavily. And to be honest, I'm a bit gutted about when I started FPL. It was the year after Frank Lampard got that 284 points haul. So he was still an option over the years when I first started playing, but nowhere near the same as he was in that season. So it's a bit of a shame to have missed out. There's a few players on this list like that just because of when I started playing FPL. But it is what it is. And this is where it gets interesting, though, when you think about what we talked about on the forwards list and how many attacking returns they got. This is going to go to show you how much easier, to a certain extent, just because of the way the point scoring is, it is for midfielders to rack up points. So 284 in the 09-2010 season, like I said. He only missed 2 games all season, and there were an additional 2 games where he didn't play 90 minutes. So even in those games, he played 81 and 79 minutes. But he only, and I use only kind of, it's still a great return, but versus some of the forward scores we saw, it's really not. 22 goals and 16 assists. So that's only 38 attacking returns. Now, Will, who's known as Top Marks on Fantasy Football Scout, he did go back and look at the points total because a lot of the times when we've got assists, they come from places like Transfer Market, and they don't necessarily include fantasy assists. So he actually looked back and reckons he probably had 17 assists altogether if you include fantasy assists. So still 39 attacking returns, but the likes of Suarez had 55. I think Henry had 49 in one season as well. So it's much lower, and obviously they get a bit extra from the clean sheets and when they actually score a goal. But still, 284 points, incredible consistency. And then when you look at the other seasons, so 269 points in 04-05. So this was Jose Mourinho's first season at Chelsea. They won the league with an incredible 95 points. If you think back at how big, in recent seasons hitting 100 has been, and that's obviously been very difficult to do. To get 95 all those years ago was incredible. So really good. And they had 24 clean sheets that season. So obviously that helped him top up a lot of his points there as well. Individual contribution was 13 goals, 16 assists, only 29 attacking returns for 269 points, which just does feel a bit low. But at the end of the day, all we want from FPL players is to score points. So overall, Frank Lampard's going to go down as one of the greatest midfielders to ever play in the league, and definitely one of, if not the best, FPL midfielder as well. Next up, we have Mo Salah. Now, this is the only player on the list to still be playing, and also the only player on this list of top 5 who's only, and I say only, obviously he's had 2 great seasons. Obviously we're expecting to see more from Liverpool, but he's only had 2 seasons above 200 points. So it was between him, Fabregas and Alexis Sanchez, and I just felt you could not leave off the midfielder who has the record points total ever recorded in FPL, 303 2 seasons ago, and he was actually priced at 9 million when he started that season. So incredible value. And then he backed it up with 259 points last season, which isn't bad for a one-season wonder. So Mo Salah definitely gets on the list. I still think that, and I won't keep trying to talk about Luis Suarez all the time, I still think the 295 points by Luis Suarez was a little bit more impressive. No penalties to back him up, 55 attacking returns, as I said before. But you can't knock Salah for scoring 303, bursting back onto the scene in the league and absolutely smashing it, to be honest. He did play in the league before playing for Liverpool, as some of you probably know. He played for Chelsea back in the 2013-2014 season and the 14-15 season, but fair to say he didn't get much of a go there, so he only registered 34 points total across those 2 seasons in 534 minutes. Only scored twice and got 1 assist. And obviously that's a little way off his current amazing seasons that he's been having. And interestingly, he's already on 186 this year at 7.2 points per match. So that would give him, if he carried on at 7.2 for the rest of the remaining games, that would give him 250 points. He's still got Palace at home, Villa at home, Burnley at home, and Brighton away to come. If he could get 250 points plus 3 seasons in a row, including holding the 303 points record, I think it's probably about time we start talking about him as the best FPL asset ever, especially at least in terms of midfielders, even ahead of Frank Lampard. Let me know what you think about that in the comments below. So looking at last season, 259 points, 22 goals, 12 assists, so 36 attacking returns, but the 303-point season, even better. So 32 goals, 12 assists, 44 attacking returns. That's getting to the elite level that we saw some of the forwards hit. So absolutely incredible. Very difficult to score 30 plus goals in a season. We don't see that often in the Premier League. And to be fair, I think one of the reasons he came down from 303 to 259, and I'm not knocking 259, it's still a great score. I think maybe defenders found a bit of a better way to play against him, but also Mane kind of stepped up. And a bit like Man City players, you don't often see them in dream teams and stuff like that because the points are shared around. They've got a lot of players that can score goals, get assists in that team. And I think a similar thing happened for Salah. He still scored an incredible 259, but Mane got more of the spoils there. So he's definitely going to go down as an FPL great. If he gets 250 again this season, I'd even argue he is the best. So we're back with another Chelsea player. Obviously, Frank Lampard did play for Man City at one point, but a large portion, or nearly all his points, came when he played at Chelsea. And this time we've got Eden Hazard. Now, he's the only player on the list behind Lampard to have 4 seasons at least with 200 plus points. So pretty elite. And considering he's known by kind of a portion of the FPL community as a bit of a troll, he hasn't done badly in the scoring at all. So 4 seasons above 200, 202, 233, 224 and 238 have been his total. So he hasn't had that kind of elite 250 plus score, but that's pretty consistent over a good number of years. Now, obviously, he's the type of the player that, there's a bit of a cliche that you had to own him all season to get his hauls, and if you tried to pick him at the right time, it wouldn't necessarily happen. Maybe you get bigger hauls against some of the big teams, then you bring him in against easier teams, and it wouldn't happen. But ultimately, although points per match is probably the key when picking a player, because you want to get them in for their big scores and then try and get rid of them. That's obviously the main aim of the game. But when you can put in a player like this who he's going to get 200 points over the course of the season, is going to keep ticking over, that's pretty handy as well. So his highest score was 238. And I've kind of got some good memories of owning Hazard. Most recently, I think it was in the 18-19 season when he played Cardiff. And got a hat-trick. I actually bought him in, didn't captain him, but it just goes to show it wasn't necessarily much of a troll. You bring in a player against Cardiff, you want a big score, and he duly delivered. But I can appreciate some people don't have the same good memories with Hazard. In that 238-point season in 18-19, that was before he was transferred to Real Madrid. So 16 goals, 15 assists. And again, that's not necessarily fancy assists, but it's probably not far off. So 31 attacking returns. And again, it's not really, and I keep harping back to talking about the forwards, but in terms of totals, it's not massive. And again, he probably picked up quite a few bonus points in that season as well, which really helped. But only 16 goals, and 16 goals was the most that he ever scored in the Premier League in one season. So not really much of a goal scorer. I know I've kind of seen him a few times and got frustrated. It's almost like he didn't have a desire to score goals at times. Obviously, he's a great footballer. No one's doubting that. Especially not me, but sometimes he just didn't have that eye for goal. I felt that he would always look for the assist instead, and that probably would have made him even a better kind of FPL option. Obviously for his team he did great things, and I'm sure no Chelsea fans are going to be complaining about the way he played, but from an FPL point of view there was definitely more points at stake for him. Looking at the kind of other seasons, so 224 in 16-17, again 16 goals, only 5 assists that season. And then 233 points in the 2014-15 season, 14 goals, 9 assists. So again, just 23 attack and returns, which isn't bad, but it's not particularly exciting when you think of some of the other player scores that we've seen. So great consistency. 4 scores above 200 is extremely good. Considered a troll. I wouldn't call him that, but I know he was a bit frustrating to own at times. Cristiano Ronaldo up next, and I know I said this about Frank Lampard, but Cristiano Ronaldo is definitely one of those players I regret not playing FPL for at the time. I started in 2010, 2011, and by then he'd left the league and left Man United. And it would have been great to get him in, not just because he was an incredible player, but also because I'm a Man United fan. And I love owning players that are doing well when they play for Man United, and it doesn't really get much better than Cristiano Ronaldo at his best. So 3 scores above 200, 206 in 2008, 2009, 283 in 07-08, which is only 1 less than Frank Lampard's record, and 244 in the 06-07 season. I think we can all agree, if he hadn't left Man United, he'd probably go down as the greatest FPL player of all time, and probably, less importantly, one of the best players in the Premier League. So let's look at the seasons where he did play in the Premier League and reminisce about them. So the best season, like I said, 07-08, 283 points. That was the season when Man United just pipped Chelsea to the title. They got 87 points versus Chelsea's 85. And probably more importantly, from an FPL point of view, Man United scored 80 goals that season, which was the most in the league. Now, Ronaldo missed 4 games completely, and there were 3 other games where he played 30 minutes or less. So he came pretty close to Lampard's record, only 20 points off Mo Salah's as well. And when you think about the games that he missed, if he'd played all of them, obviously would have broken the record, but he didn't. So 283 is the highest that he got. So he got 31 goals and 7 assists that season, so 38 attacking returns. Then for the 244-point season, 06-07, again, he missed 4 games completely and 3 games where he played 45 minutes or less. 17 goals and 15 assists. So that's a bit more like a kind of Eden Hazard season. So not, amazing versus the forward kind of scores that they had, but still excellent. Obviously, a great points return. But that 283-point season, obviously, was the best of the best. I think, if he was kind of a 90-minute week in, week out kind of man, like we see with the likes of, Gerrard would have had that, Lampard would have had that, then he would have knocked up much higher scores. And obviously, if he stayed in the league, like I said, he would have gone down as a great. But it's a bit shame we didn't get to see him longer. I'm gutted that I didn't get to play at the time, but definitely on the top 5 list. So Steven Gerrard is the last player to make it on this list. And I'll be honest, when it comes down to picking players, obviously I went for the 200 plus points total over the course of however many seasons that have been done, which is why he makes the list. In terms of high scores, it's pretty unexciting, to be honest. So the 07-08 season got 200 points, 08-09 216, and that was the high point. And then 13-14 season 205. So although he did it 3 times, no big exciting scores which some of the other players on the list, and even some of the players that missed out have got. So I cut the likes of Bale, Mahrez, Yaya Toure, they've all got bigger season totals than Gerrard has had. Even Alexis Sanchez, although he's only done it twice, he did get 264 points, which is much higher than Gerrard has ever got. So maybe controversial. I think if there was any player I would take off this list, it probably would be Gerrard. Obviously, we're only talking about FPL here. He's definitely going to go down as one of the all-time Premier League greats. But from an FPL point of view, pretty unexciting, but he did do it 3 times. So we'll give him that, and he does make it on the list. And a bit like Lampard and Hazard, he did have penalties, which obviously helps him back it up. And again, when you talk about kind of Premier League greats, who's the best player, you can talk about penalties and how that backs up some players' total goals. But when it comes to FPL, we just don't care. As long as the ball is going in the right net, we want all the goals we can get, whether they're penalties or not. So let's talk about some of those seasons. So the 13-14 season where he got 205 points, that was the same season where Suarez broke the record and got 295. The infamous slip season, so City pipped Liverpool to the title by just 2 points. And Gerrard's total for that season was 13 goals, 15 assists, including a hat-trick of assists against Fulham. His highest total was 216, so that was in the 08-09 season, 16 goals and 11 assists, so just 27 attacking returns. So again, nothing too exciting, but again, a lot of FPL points that came with those kind of minimal attacking returns. And I say minimal again when I compare them to some of the forwards that we've had. And obviously he did play with some incredible strikers, which would have helped with the assists, the likes of Suarez, Torres, etc. Liverpool had some pretty good strikers over the years. We probably won't mention Andy Carroll though. We'll quickly move on. So 3 seasons above 200 points does put him on the list. Let me know whether you think, is 200 plus points a fair gauge of how players have done, or should we look at kind of maximum scores? Should Sanchez get in ahead of Gerrard, especially if you're forgetting the Man United years? So let me know. He's on the list, but should he be? So that's it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a like. I've really enjoyed kind of researching, looking back over the seasons, reminiscing about some nostalgia and some of the great players of old. Obviously, Mo Salah doesn't count because he's still playing. There's obviously some great other players that are no longer playing in the league. And I think midfielders is probably going to be the hardest one to judge who should be the top 5. I think it was relatively easy for forwards. We'll probably do defenders next week, which again I think will be a bit easier because there won't be so many players that have knocked up some huge scores. But when it comes to midfielders, it was tough. So let me know who you would replace, who are your favourite midfielders. And don't forget, we are doing big hitters here. There's definitely some players, like I said at the start, like Charlie Adam, Michu, Sigurdsson when he was at Swansea, and players like that who were incredible value as well. Leave a comment below. Subscribe if you're new around here. The content's going to keep on coming no matter when the league is back. So make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. Otherwise, we will catch you next time.